And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's start the year off the right way. Our continued coverage of the government shutdown. Michael Dougherty joining us from the Devil Inside the Beltway. I believe it's his first appearance of 2019. Good morning.
Well, Happy New Year. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Not bad. So first off, we've got Donald Trump takes the Clemson football team. He brings them to the White House. They show up. They're grateful, and people are ripping Trump for buying them junk food with their own money. Can the president win at anything?
Yeah, those people never drive to a McDonald's. At some point, that's the same crowd that just screams the loudest, but not the majority. I mean, the self-righteous always scream loudest. So it sounds like there's more of them than there are. So, whatever. I think I might go out and have a quarter pound with cheese just to stand with Donald Trump today.
Yes, I like that. Stand with Trump. Go to Wendy's or McDonald's or what have you. So, I mean, it is kind of ridiculous when you think about this. Here you have, these kids, a dominant performance in college football, and that's all they can do. And we'll get back to that. But on a serious note, Michael, let's talk a little bit about this New York Times article alleging that the president is a stooge of the Russians. Imagine if Donald Trump had said to Medvedev, the guy that was in there holding the place for Putin, let me get through this election and good times will happen for all of us. The world would be exploding, right?
Right. And so this is sort of the bottom line. The gauntlet gets thrown down. It's sad. A lot of Americans don't realize, or it doesn't get down to them, especially along the coast and in urban areas, the absolute, blatant, unapologetic, repetitive, and pounding hypocrisy in journalism. And and the reason is because it's so extreme. Because I don't know where these journalists get off operating in their profession so directly opposite what they're taught in journalism school. Most of them probably didn't go. And this has become just these propaganda machines like Pravda. They're shameless, absolutely shameless, but they're also powerful because they get to pull the plug on what they don't report that doesn't fit their narrative. And they've just turned up the volume. I mean, it's really unbelievable. And the question's going to really be, how many dumb people do we have out there that keep supporting this type of outrageous behavior?
Indeed. Of course, you have people openly advocating for, in my opinion, the overthrow of the government, and that continues on today. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, again, and replace it with what? And the irony is these are the people that want to save the world and they think they're doing a good thing. They're completely unhinged. You don't save the world with governments that don't have checks and balances. You don't save the world with governments that have absolute power. You don't save the world with government, period. And what's terrifying is the number of ignorant, spoiled brats that we have. They want to save the world. They know they're right, so do it my way or I'm going to blow your head off. I mean, they don't see anything wrong with that type of power play. And that's the problem. And the real concern is how much has it metastasized into our schools and our networks and our businesses, and how much has it gone in so that the people that are teaching our children don't see anything wrong with that.
Right.
It's terrifying.
Well, and they keep recycling the old talking points, and whether it's true or not, and you go back to the New York Times story, which said, look, the president, there's no evidence. But the idea that the FBI on its own, this rogue organization, and, look, we want to be respectful to all the good people in law enforcement, but to all of a sudden launch a counterterrorism investigation into the president? Based on what?
Well, I mean, this is what we're seeing, and this is what they didn't want to be seen. And this is what they're fighting like crazy. I mean, this is all the tentacles of power. And then if you look back in the rearview mirror, you see the Clintons were very in bed with the tentacles of power, and the Obamas weaponized them. from the Justice Department to the NSA to the CIA. I mean, Clapper, all of them. I mean, these are vicious people that did vicious things that are using their vicious behavior to protect the truth of coming out of how they conducted themselves. They're anti-American. They're guilty of treason. And what's terrifying is there won't be any accountability. When you have no accountability, you eventually will end up with anarchy. And that's what you see spreading through. And this is really very, very dangerous when the people will elect someone who wants to upend the Constitution and play this type of battle. It is people that don't believe in compromise or checks and balances, and that's what they're undermining when they do this, is a problem. They'd be a lot more effective trying to deal with the administrative state and how the 20th century built a Congress is completely ineffective. If they really wanted to save the world, they'd work on getting rid of these type of despots. But, when we don't educate everybody and we keep them intentionally ignorant, this is the type of craziness that's going to ensue.
Michael Dougherty joining us, devilinsidethebeltway.com. You can get his work there. So let's talk a little bit about currency. And all of a sudden we've got this issue where billions just vanish overnight. Over $452 billion vanish, and possibly the end of the iPhone. What's up with that?
Well, I mean, that's just marketplace. Now, let's not go sorry for Apple, because trust me, they've got a lot of cash in those accounts anyway. But what goes on is they're not seeing their capitalization's going down because they've reached a saturation point. I mean, no one was cheering for them as they were making money hand over fist with obscene profit margins, and their capitalization might be one thing, but that's paper numbers versus the amount of dollars they have in the bank, which is way more than most countries around the world have in their entire economy. So, it's an impressive number. It's a lot going on. But look, what goes up has to come down a certain bit, and as long as you don't liquidate and find where they're far from that, it's a numbers game. I don't feel bad for Apple. I don't feel bad. Look, I mean, actually, these people need some humble pie. They need to pull in a little bit. They need to understand that market forces who they're responsible for. These tech companies have become off the chain. They think they're cultural, artists molding us as clay as they intervene in what we think, how we think, what's supposed to think, judge whether we have hate speech or not, sell the data on it. So you're not going to get a big alarm bell out of me. I think it's kind of healthy.
Michael Dougherty joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KID Talk Radio. So when does the government shutdown end?
Well, this is fascinating because when one political party learns that they can't get any more political capital out of that grapefruit, when they just squeeze it dry, that's when they move on. And Trump is just, having a field day with his big negotiative tool, which is, I will go farther and I can outlast you more than anybody. And so if the public it becomes really clear, and these battle lines get drawn, and they just throw it in and give them the wall. I mean, they're trying right now, the media right now is trying to fan the flames of every overflowing garbage can they can find. And so far, what they can really find is nothing more than the airport line. Well, the airport line doesn't really affect a ton of Americans, and the percentage of people there, I think Trump's going to get this going, but he's going to show a few more months. And what's going to happen is people are going to learn, wow, there's local governments and state governments and all sorts of other governments, and I don't notice that much in my day-to-day life.
On the other hand, Michael Dougherty at KIDO Talk Radio, you could sit back and say the propaganda machine is in overdrive. I'm watching CNN. They don't have the worker on. They have the worker's wife with the kid on. Crying. And look, no one wants to miss a paycheck. No one wants to, do work for free. But that there is some resonance there with having these folks on, government workers being portrayed as victims. Now you have people saying, Well, they're going to be longer lines at TSA. Things aren't going to get fixed. You can't get into national parks.
Well, no one wants to go to national parks in winter anyway, and this is going to once again be. It depends on how smart the American public want to be and understand that. Oh yeah, CNN it's CNN. Pick a victim and exploit them. I mean, how many tragedies do they not even pay attention to? I've interacted with these producers, and one thing about being producers in the news, and it's really not a criticism, it's a fact, you see so much tragedy every day, you become completely immune to it. They're not feeling a thing for these people. They're just feeling how they can use it for more theater. I mean, there's so many victims of Obamacare, it's not funny. There's so many people that just don't happen to be poor, that have nothing coming at them, that have paid such outrageous premiums now. They have terrible coverage. There's no stories about that. So this victim exploitation game by the media is disgusting, only because it's so selective. So that's what ultimately, are the public going to be fooled and manipulated or not? CNN throwing these theater games on, they're just children. It's terrifying how many people don't see through the joke of CNN and MSNBC.
Well, that's the way they
really
like it.
Great. Well, that's an echo chamber, and you wonder how long magical thinking will go on. Because it is a battle with that. But look, I mean, more people are supporting the wall than ever, and they're like, look, give it to them. And if they want to sit here and vilify them, that's politics. That's the game. I mean, they couldn't have done more vilification of Donald Trump if they had tried when he ran the first time. This is nothing compared to what they ran against him then. They've tried everything, and they won't stop. And at some point, you huff and puff and blow the house down, and nothing's going on. But that's all they've got. And they keep throwing the mud. And basically what they're relying on is gaslighting, which is throwing lies at such a fast pace that eventually people become to believe it. And people like Saul Alinsky and Nazis knew that might work overall in the long run. And so that's why they would use it. But cultural manipulation like this is a little more difficult when you've got a free internet and a free people. But the key is education. And when we have to keep the discussion going and keep, in a calm manner in the middle of all these fake moral outrage and outrageous histrionics. I mean, I heard Anderson Cooper was speechless a couple of days ago. I was so happy. That's great.
Michael Dougherty, devilinsidethebeltway.com. We appreciate you. Thank you. Look forward to having you on many times in 2019. Take care, brother.
All right. Well, thanks. Good talking to you. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Get this. The number of airport security screeners failed to show up for work around the country is soaring as the partial government shutdown goes into its fourth week. No shows among screeners jumped Sunday and again Monday when the TSA reported a national absence rate of 7.6 compared with 3.2% on a comparable day a year ago. Monday marked the first business day after screeners did not receive a paycheck for the first time since the shutdown began. Now, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, your thoughts on people not getting paid, not showing up for work, no pay, no job? Who wants to work for free? Well, that would be the radio business. But truly, we are seeing a battle of wills. On one hand, we have seen the press doing their very, very best to derail our beloved president, who we want to come to Idaho, who we want to make certainly our country better. And on the other hand, we have the libs, Nancy and Chuck and everybody else doing their very best for open borders and to permanently change the United States of America.
They think if they can stop me from building the wall, that's good. This is the reason why they don't want the wall built. Because they all know it works. They all approved it numerous times. I mean, Chuck Schumer had his hand up every time this would come up. The senators know this. They're only doing this because of the 2020 election. Because I said I'll build the wall, and I'm going to build the wall, and it's only one of many things that I promised.
And there we have it from the president. Coming up, we'll hear from Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. We'll hear from you. And our top national story, the William Barr hearings underway. Will he be the next attorney general? We'll get a report from Rachel Sutherland. A lot going on today. Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. All right, Sean Hannity, thank you very much. The President of the United States standing firm. Chuck Schumer having this to say.
It's time for Leader McConnell to realize he has the power to break this impasse, passing the House legislation to reopen the government. Legislation his party already supports. Legislation that Leader McConnell has voted for and bragged about. The president is unwilling to move the ball forward, so Congress must.
Right, here's the grand play by the Democrats. They're trying to drive a wedge between the Senate Republicans and President Trump, along with his base, the president standing firm. It was compelling to hear, once again, the president with Sean Hannity last week, also Judge Jeanine over the weekend. The president doesn't back down, and we've never had anybody like this, and he's just tweeting out, even as we speak this morning, we finally have a president that is telling the truth about the wall. And in Idaho, people are, there's a big faction that is the Chamber of Commerce crowd. Now, nothing against the Chamber. They do wonderful things. And like everybody in the family, we can agree to disagree, right? We can certainly agree to disagree when we're looking at immigration and immigration reform. Should the president have accepted $20 billion in the DACA kids? Maybe. But one thing that is so true for most of us in life, and I'm sure it's true for you, when you get caught speeding, you have to pay a fine. When you run up the bills, you have to pay those off. When you do certain things, there is a consequence. But when you come into the country illegally, never before have we seen a political party and the press openly advocate for lawbreakers. 580-5436, 580-KIDU. And then back to the TSA, back to the government shutdown. All we're hearing about is the poor workers. And look, no one should be working for free. I get that. Look, most of us live paycheck to paycheck, right? But on the other hand, if you're in charge of national security, if you're at an airport and all of a sudden you're waiting in lines, and let's face it, being in an airport is not what it was 30 years ago. Remember when they had the mall concepts and flying was fun and people dressed up? You ever flown lately? I mean, people are stuffed into, little small seats, and then you have the rather large rotund people like me that, we're oozing out of seats, and then the poor skinny people feel oppressed and everything else. It's horrible. And then the line through TSA, when you're moving and shaking and everything else, so they're going to specifically cut the workforce back so people feel the pain. I think that's the big issue here at 580-5436. If you weren't getting paid, would you go to work? Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio time.
I'm just Channel 7's Larry Gibbard.
Thank you, Larry. So again, back to the story where we're looking at, whether or not people should go to work without a paycheck, and that the Democrats continue to pursue this. Trump is a stooge of the Russians. Trump did this. It wasn't Donald Trump that said to Medvedev that give him time after the election, they could really do some damage. But that was former President Obama, right? So the government shutdown, we'll continue talking about that. Coming up, Fox News Radio's Rachel Sutherland, live from Washington. We'll get her thoughts on William Barr and whether or not he's going to be a good attorney general as opposed to a bad attorney general. And the legislature has kicked into gear. Is anybody excited about what's going on in Boise? No, not David Beater's magical kingdom, but we're talking about the legislature and whether or not you think that anything good's going to get accomplished. And as, we gave them some time, but I still don't see the repeal of the grocery tax up there. Am I missing it? Is it there? And I missed it that as soon as the legislature was sworn in, amidst pomp and circumstance and the marching bands and the dancing bears and everything else, did I miss the vote already on the repeal of the grocery tax? Did I miss that? Did somebody bring that up and I'm not seeing it? Are we being unfair? So we'll get into that as well. KIDO Talk Radio on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Our time is 6:30. Let's find out what's happening in your world from our friends at Channel 7. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Thank you, Dave Ramsey. Kevin Miller in the morning. Don't forget Sean Hannity this afternoon at 3. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Your proud home for Fox News on the radio. Rachel Sutherland joining us live from Capitol Hill. Still working, still collecting a paycheck, which is reassuring. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Always a good thing. Yeah, as the shutdown does continue, seems to still have no resolution. And this morning, we know that Bill Barr is going to be going before the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is confirmation hearing to become the next Attorney General. Expect Democrats to really question him about the Russia probe. He has said in prepared remarks he has no intentions of trying to interfere in that or try to stop it, but they're concerned because of a memo that he sent to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein last summer, in which he criticized Bob Mueller's approach in possibly going after the president on obstruction of justice. So Democrats are making the argument that they feel that he was kind of auditioning for the job and that he can't be impartial.
Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same, if you will. What do we know about Mr. Barr?
Well, Bill Barr served as Attorney General back in the 1990s under President George H.W. Bush. So he does have experience as Attorney General, and so that'll help. I mean, having that on your resume definitely would help. And he has also worked in corporate America and held different positions. So I don't think his qualifications are something that's under question. I think the Democrats are going to be focusing in on Russia. But there's lots of other questions to be asked of Bill Barr, like how would he handle the opioid crisis? Will it be different than Jeff Sessions' approach? Would it be the same? And other issues that will come up, cyber concerns, things like that.
Rachel Sutherland joining us on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. What was the mood like over the weekend after the New York Times and the Washington Post dropped those big bombs?
About President Trump and possibly working for Russia kind of thing?
Being the Russian stooge, yes.
Oh, look, I mean, the president has definitely spoken out about that and said that that's ridiculous. He won't even really answer those questions. As far as mood, I mean, I haven't been over on the Hill, but I think that everybody just really wants a conclusion to this Mueller investigation. These stories will keep dropping until we get some kind of resolution. I think that that's frustrating for Americans. We're coming up on 2 years in May. It'll be 2 years of the Russia probe. So the president, though, he's basically saying he's not even going to dignify those reports with a response.
Well, the president continues to fire, a lot of shots. Any movement on the government shutdown, we now hear the TSA. People are calling off and multiple reports of people working without a paycheck. Is that impacting folks on the Hill at all?
Well, it is in that they're hearing a lot of stories from people. They're under pressure to be able to come up with some kind of solution. But we know that the president has turned down just yesterday Senator Lindsey Graham's idea of reopening the government for a few weeks and then declaring a national emergency if they can't come to some kind of an agreement on this. The president is just not backing down at all. And you're right. We're hearing about TSA agents who have been, calling in sick, and there's been some reporting that of long waits to be able to get through security checkpoints at airports because of it. If they're not getting paid, so many are not coming to work. I mean, I don't know what their rules are, but they could probably be out a few days before they even need a doctor's note.
Indeed, and of course, no one likes to wait in line at the TSA.
No, and it had gotten better for a while. I mean, it always seems like I end up at the airport way too early, and it didn't take very long. But still, now they're saying that some places, some of these waits can be as long as 3 hours because people are calling out. And so there are ripple effects. You have food inspections, routine food inspections that aren't getting done. So you may not know if your romaine is bad. And look, I mean, this is the latest, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Unemployment is an option for some of these federal workers, but a lot of them feel that, hey, by the time they file for unemployment, the money will just come back. But that may not be the case. We've never really seen anything like this. We're in uncharted territory.
Rachel, we've kept you too long. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Rachel Sutherland. I could go on and on about that. Kevin Miller in the morning here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Well, here's something. China's saying that they're looking at planning to grow potatoes on the moon. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that. Back to this issue concerning the legislature, and we have all the pomp, the circumstances. We had the intrigue on who's going to be the leader of the House, leader of the Senate, and the legislature moves on. There have been some controversial things already concerning whether or not vaccines should be mandatory. But my point to you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, is this issue involving whether or not the grocery tax will be repealed. Now, I believe it was a brilliant move a few years ago by now Congressman Fulcher, and by now Senator Baer, I believe, who's his chief of staff, that actually embarrassed the folks that did not want the repeal of the grocery tax to go forward, that it got out of committee, that it did do their very best. Now, there are a lot of people that, and I'd love to hear from people that are against repealing the grocery tax. But remember during the campaign, and to be able to put it together a sentence that wasn't a run-on, to figure out what a direct object is and was and what sort of thing. Because I believe there's a brilliant narrative, and we did our very best to cover this, the campaign between the big candidates for governor, right? And what did they all tell us? If I'm elected, we're going to repeal the grocery tax. And by the way, has anybody seen Paulette Jordan? I tell you what, I haven't seen Paulette Jordan. I don't know whatever happened to her. Remember, she came in and, her campaign stuff, got to be careful these days. She rode in on a horse and she left. But we had every major candidate. And then we had every person running for the House and the Senate that was a Republican, and even the libs, I believe, said, hey, we're going to repeal that grocery tax. And when we repeal that grocery tax, it's going to be a good thing. And it's going to be great and wonderful, and people in Idaho are going to get more money back. And then we had the shortfall. And then we had the issue involving the government shortfall of $60 million. State of Idaho, $60 million short. I don't know how that happens. So what happens next? Well, there's no repeal of the grocery tax. Has anybody made a public statement on this? Kind of like the sound of me talking to myself right now. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. That's number one. Number two, and it's a story that's been percolating a lot, and it's taken us a while to get to it here, but it's the story of the guy, you heard about this, with the T-shirt? There's a guy that came up with a T-shirt, and unlike other places, although we've had some shootings here recently, unfortunately, this is a big story. He came up with a T-shirt where he merged the states of California and Idaho. And by the way, if you try and do a domain thing, Idaformia, for Idafornia, it's already, Idafornia.com is already taken. But so he did this, and he had like 12 T-shirts to sell, and people started cussing him out. And I had somebody say this to me, well, it's going to get bad. It's always been bad with those folks coming in here, the expats from California. And if you're somebody from California, you get tired of getting vilified. I understand that. I just ask that you change your license plates. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, the influx of Californians continue. I want to get your thoughts on this T-shirt. I'll give you mine in a minute. But first, Ron Paul Jim returns on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir. Good to have you with us.
I just wanted to remind you that $50 million shortfall we wouldn't have had they not purchased HP at the 11th hour of the last session. In
Without-
fact, we'd be in the plus column, wouldn't we? By about 60 million or more.
at least.
And they also jacked up the gas tax, and it just looks to me like if you were to cover up the R, this would be a Democrat controlled House in the state of Idaho. So, but these little surprise spending things, and they, the fight over the right to carry, the constitutional right to carry, was like pulling teeth, but they had no problem just dropping, 120 million plus on that building without any debate or anybody knowing about it. Pretty much,
Well, I think they finally approved that, in October and November, out of session. And whoops, we purchased the building and we're moving on. By the way, at least the state is mowing the lawn, which is more than HP did in its final years. But you're right. Where is the money? Where's the accountability? Apparently these and what about the repeal of the grocery tax?
Well, they should have done that a long time ago, but never is not the nature of government to ever let go or relinquish any power or money or anything. It doesn't matter who's in control. There's the establishment here in Idaho as well, and they will not let go of the power that they've accomplished on either side. So, we have the same problems as we're dealing with in D.C. I'm sure there's, what were all the tax incentives that HP had in favor of being here or moving here or whatever. They carve out these little special things for these corporations that none of us are qualified for. If they're going to do any sort of incentive for business, it needs to be across the board, not just for HP or for some corporation. And that, to me, is where the corruption lies. We need to get rid of their corporate status.
I don't know how we do that, though. It's all big money and everything else.
Because a corporation, it's a legal person that cannot die. It has no morals. It's only profit-driven. It has its own legal system, legal team, and more influence than you and I in the, they get direct access, anytime they want to our elected representatives. So there's a problem there. I see that as where, the sociopathic nature of politicians can hide behind the corporate veil.
Ron Paul, Jim, thank you. Good to hear from you, sir.
Good.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning, taking your calls on 107.5 FM, 580. I'm going back to this issue. There's no repeal of the grocery tax so far. This is a new era in Idaho politics. I don't really see that. Do you? Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. Back in 1976, I took when they started the public administration department in Boise State, I took classes in Pat Dorman, and one thing she taught was that if departments don't use all their money budget-wise, and you don't spend it, you lose it. And this is the philosophy that dictates a lot of times in government. If the department ended up, let's say, budgeted for $100 million and they only use $80 million, they'll spend the extra $20 million so that they can keep the budget level at the level that they have. That was, and another dictate was that you always control. She taught in the classes that you always control information. You may not be, it was wrong to necessarily lie to the legislature or to lie to the thing, but you weren't forthcoming. In other words, you made them work to find the information. As long as you could control the information, you controlled the situation. That was what she taught also in the classes back in 1976. And I think a lot of government bureaucrats operate on that principle in public administration.
Well, Hank, though, let's go to the bigger question. Where's the repeal of the grocery tax?
Well, I don't think that's forthcoming. But Scott Betke, the Speaker of the House, job is to run interference for the governor. In other words, the governor can say, well, I was voting, but the legislature just kind of failed to do anything about it.
Right.
And basically he's doing the bidding. I mean, it was a cynical game. It was a cynical game when the thing came out of committee last time around. Becky ran interference with Butch by delaying the bill, making it sit on the first reading for 2 or 3 weeks till the end of the session, so that when the bill came up, Butch could pocket veto it after the legislature had dismissed, and they could not override the veto. That was done deliberately. That wasn't by accident. That was basically a worked out scheme between Scott Becky and Governor Slickster. So,
wow.
I mean, that's I call him Slickster. He's. I mean, Butchie Baby was the ultimate Slickster. So I mean, I think that. I think that's what's to a certain extent. I'm not going to be critical of Brad Little right at first. I'm going to take a wait and see whether or not he's going to go. I think one sign that might be hopeful is that he's replaced a lot of most of Butch's key people on these departments, which shows that he may not be going exactly the same route as Governor. And I hope so. The state doesn't need another 8 years of Butchie Baby style government, that's for sure.
All right, Hank, thank you for the call.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Coming up, your thoughts on where the repeal of the grocery tax is. And Idafornia. Is that the future of Idaho and California? You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.